Good afternoon. Welcome back to Higher Definition Radio, where it's always our goal. I aim to take you higher. And tonight we will be continuing our series on financial literacy by answering the question of, does your money make sense? And I believe it's fitting that we also dedicate tonight's show to the memory of Bob Barker. We just lost him yesterday. And I'll say for myself, if it wasn't for Bob, I probably wouldn't have known the price of things or how much things cost. So some of my best memories as a kid is growing up in my grandmama's house and watching stories and watching the prices right. Plinko just ain't gonna be the same. All right. So before we get into it, let's go around and see how everybody's week went. And we'll start with Miss Tinisha Springs.
Hello. Well, I had a great week. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. But yeah, my week was fantastic. No complaints. If I had some, I would keep them to myself. So nothing but smiles. We had a little strep. Second week of school already. She got strep, but that's a whole nother conversation. We're getting over it. The antibiotics work, so we're good to go.
There you go. Pastor Ed, how was your week?
Very similar. Great week. Can't complain. We're sick. We're quarantined. My wife and I have COVID. So we are quarantined. I think we're at the end of it, but you never know. So we've been testing and doing all that good stuff. My 16-year-old doesn't have it. She's in the house with us. So it's been interesting separating from her and making sure she goes to school and not, take any germs with her.
All right. And Brother Lamont, how's your week?
It was kind of an interesting week. I haven't thought about it until you just said it. I traveled for the first part of last week to Michigan, to the Grand Rapids, Detroit area, and it was beautiful. It was in the 70s. And the following day I returned, I got hit with a tornado 2 miles from our office, and people's lives that worked for me were turned upside down. And it's one of those things where you put work and life in perspective. There's a camp worried about opening the doors to get things business-wise, and then there's a camp that's like, hey, no, human lives are affected. So it's been an interesting week. And then today, our new pastor for Union Baptist Church, Pastor Edward Francis, was installed today. It's a joyous time at our church to have new leadership. And it was also a long day today. It was a long day, but a joyous day with new leadership and new ideas. And I'm looking forward to it. So interesting week overall.
All right. Very interesting. And last but not least, we have our brother Jay Shaw. It's hard to get him on here, but we got him this week, and we're glad to have him.
Yeah, great week. First week back to school for my son Jackson, who's 14 years old in 8th grade. So great week back for him. I think he can finally put the video game controllers down now and concentrate on the things that are really important. So far, so good.
All right. And one of the things I like to do when I put panels together, I like to bring, a diverse group of people with different backgrounds. So on this panel, we got a lot of different types of experience. I don't want to go too far into everybody's individual situations. You can talk about it on, during your own. But this first question, I want to just get, some of you kind of take the temperature of the overall state of the economy. We got a lot of different indicators saying that we might be going into some rough times. What is your opinion on where you think things are going, Pastor Ed?
I mean, look, this to me is 2008. It's a recession, right? And they're like I said earlier, I can say things that I'm not obligated to speak a certain way. So I can say that I believe that the Fed is raising rates to push unemployment up. Pushing unemployment up will get inflation down. So we have too many people working. They just won't want to say that because it looks ugly to say you got too many folks working. We got to get people out of work. but that's exactly what's happening. So I do indeed think there's going to be some issues. And I think preparation is going to be the key, right? Like always, it's always about preparation and taking, what's the word? Educated risk, right?
All right. And so, I guess we have to put the disclaimer out that, we're not financial advisors. So if you do something we say and lose a bunch of money, good luck to you. And we pray for you. All right, Ms. Springs, you're a financial advisor. You sell life insurance. You do a lot of things in the community. Just based on your experience and what you see, like what do you feel like the economy is going headed?
Well, in my 15 years that I've been in the industry, I've always been on the side of safety. I work with a lot of retirees and a lot of people who have, their best accumulation years. They have already passed them. They're now at that stage of the game that they are, exiting, and they want to make sure. I mean, if you tell them they might lose, $3, that's not a good conversation. Typically with the folks that I talk to. So I'm more on the side of safety, regardless what's going on with the market, that type of thing. I always tell folks I don't have any bad conversations. All of my conversations are about this is what you have, this is how long it's going to last, and I do things that are not, so hinged on whether the market is up or down or that type of thing. So I'm going to stay in that lane. And that's where I operate the best. So I will say, though, looking at, from my perspective, at what's going on and what is projected to come, I would say that safety is probably going to be the better option. I don't like the conversations of, well, I'm sorry, you've lost, but it's okay. The market will come back. I don't enjoy that conversation. So that's going to be my side of the street to stay on.
So I wouldn't put you in the camp of selling Bitcoin.
Nope.
Okay, just checking.
No, sir, you would not. Sorry, you would. And somebody actually asked me about that. I had a client call me, and again, he's retired, but his son is like, well, Dad, we need to, do this and we need to do that, and I'm like, okay, just give me, what you don't want to lose, and you go ahead with the rest of it and do your thing.
Well, I will say to that, like I don't push that, but when you start late, if you wait till you 40 or 50 and you lost some great investing years, there's a good a lot of temptation to want to try to play catch up and try to, I don't want to say cheat the system, but try to find shortcuts to make up for the loss of time. Mm-hmm. Lamont, with your experience as a manager, you hire and fire people, and you manage warehouses and supply chain management, and then with your rental properties and stuff, like you see a lot of things in that I guess that most people don't see, and you see them from a lot of different angles. So based on your experience, like where do you feel like the economy is headed?
I think it's here. Headed is maybe a different look. I think it's here. Inflation, we've been suffering from inflation for over a year. Companies have started to pull back and downsize. The housing market, you can pretty much charge what you want for rent right now because people can't afford to buy a home. So I think we're here. So from my 9-to-5 job, yeah, we've been taking precautions for a while and slashing and reducing. And I was just in a meeting last month in Germany, and that was the theme: how to reduce costs globally. How are we going to cut costs overall? And you want to learn from the mistakes of the past. And a lot of companies, one of the first things they'll cut is people. But people, truthfully, when a lot of companies lay off people during semi-downturns, that's because they wanted to get rid of you anyway, or wanted to get rid of people anyway. That's just a reason to do it, or a justification. So we're in that market. And then for me, from the rental house standpoint and investing in that, it's sad in a way because people are desperate for a place to live. And if you're in the Charlotte market, I hate to say, you can pretty much charge what you want, and people have to pay it. And there's no government regulation that's keeping you in check. And there's always the slumlords out there that'll put people in anything and charge them outrageous prices. So we're in tough times. And I always, whenever I talk to you about this, when I'm renting and when you're vetting people, you want to stay as humane as possible. Like, don't have people living in squalor just because you can, but there's some people out there that'll do you like that.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, there's some rough individuals. And Jay Shaw, I'm not going to ask you the same question I asked everybody else. Most people out here preaching doom and gloom. I need somebody to cheer me up. Like what can we do? I guess to prepare ourselves for rough financial times, whether it be financially or even emotionally. What should we be doing to gear up just in case these rough times come?
Yeah, I mean, back to what Lamont said about the rents going up and things like that. I think the major thing that happens in the good times is people expand their lifestyle, right? So when things are going well, then you have more income, you buy another car, you get a bigger house, right? So you have that creep up in lifestyle, and you're not preparing for the eventual downturn. So the number one thing you could do is evaluate all of your expenses, and expenses fall into two categories: essential and non-essential. And you got to really look yourself in the mirror and see if that $15 latte from your favorite coffee shop is essential or not. For some people, that might be essential, right? So it all depends on, where you are on that spectrum. But planning and having a sound mindset is the key in all of your decision making, whether you're in an upturn or downturn in the economic environment. I get a lot of jokes at work and in my family as well. The car that's in my garage right now is a 18-year-old Nissan Altima with 400,000 miles on it. The car I drive every day is a 15-year-old Honda Pilot that I drive every day with 300,000 miles on it. So my family tends to look at me as the anomaly. But, for me, things like expenditures towards transportation, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I'm not going to go out and lease a car every 3 years. I'm not going to go out and buy a new car because my friend got a new car, etc. So I think a lot of it is within your control. And then the things that are outside of your control, like the interest rate environment, things like that, those things are going to come. So for me, it's about making sure you make sound decisions, making sure you're eliminating debt whenever you can, and making sure you have your expenses somewhat under control. And you've seen that post-COVID. People are taking more vacations. You turn on social media now, and your friends who you thought were doing okay are doing great because they just went to Cancun last week. So all that kind of comes into it is the mindset around your situation. To what Tinisha said, I tend to be more conservative in my mindset. I tend to be more of an investor. Like Lamont, I'm also a landlord with my real estate portfolio as well. So I think a lot of it is on the positive side of things, Everett, trying to keep it positive. Control what you can control, right? You can control a lot of things in your sphere, as far as not overspending, making sure you have enough savings and things like that. And then when things do happen that you can't control, you got to be ready for those things as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like if I'm a pretty generous person, and I try to help people out when I can. But if I see you in Cancun last week, I ain't got it this week. I just ain't gonna be able to help you out, brother. Good luck. But speaking of what you're saying, I want to talk about some of these bad decisions that we see. And I'll start with you, Lamont. Like, what are some of the bad decisions, bad mistakes, bad financial mistakes you see people making that put them in hard financial times, even when times are good? It's crazy. Like sometimes when the economy is booming, some people are still struggling. So what are some of these decisions that you see?
I think Jay touched on one that I touch on a lot on the show is, as folks been vacationing a whole lot over the last few years, COVID or not, and expensive vacations. This ain't going to Myrtle Beach. Like folks, it made their mind up that local ain't the answer, that international. Like you see it all the time. Dubai, you can't be in anyone's pockets or anything like that. That's a part of it. And then a part of it for all of us, people who have credit cards, your credit card interest rates go up when the interest rates go up from the feds. Like a lot of interest rates have reset on credit cards to rise. So your payment that you was paying a year ago or 2 years ago is not the payment you have today on the same amount of money. Plus you're just reoccurring interest on it. So those are some mistakes that I think can be fatal. And then there's always the people that's always waiting. Like you can wait yourself too long. Like the people who were waiting for home ownership 3 years ago when interest rates were 3%, I think it got down to 2%. Like you might have priced yourself out of the market for a while. I know there's smarter people on the panel about that than me now, but the same trying to take out the same loan at 2.5% or 3% now at 7%, and the feds are saying they're going to raise interest rates on this next cycle at 8%. Like I don't think so 8% of my life. I think when we bought our first house, it was at like 6%, and that was 20 years ago. I don't remember 8% being. So we're in tough times. I know that's a long answer. Sorry about that.
Nah, man, I understand what you're saying. Miss Springs, when just from your standpoint as a financial advisor and then also insurance salesman, I'm sure you see a lot of bad financial decisions, especially when it comes to preparing for the worst, which is death or even sickness or illness. Like, what are some of the worst or bad financial decisions you see?
Absolutely. My goodness, the list is quite extensive. But I'll start at simply we don't have protections in place. I think that sometimes our fear maybe gets the best of us, thinking that we can put things off and just wait and wait and wait. And, I'll get a policy, later on, or I'll get, coverage for this, that, and the other later on. And it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, something as simple as, long-term care. Most people that, I interact with on a regular basis don't have a long-term care policy. Many people don't know what it is. And the sad thing is that what I tell most people is that, with long-term care, it's not even your money necessarily that buys it, it's your health. But we've waited too long to put things like that in place. And then when I bring it up, well, I'm interested in it. Long-term care takes care of you if you need help in your home or assisted living or nursing home. People will be interested in it, but then there's a list of health conditions and we can't get it. Final expense coverage, for burial and things of that nature, having a policy separate from your job. People always say, well, I have coverage on my job. I said, but what if you get sick and you don't retire from the job? So they don't even offer you the ability to keep that coverage. And now you have to try to go out and get life insurance and things of that nature. But now you're on disability. So we're in a catch-22. We got problems here. So I always try to, get folks to go ahead, and you have to think about many times the things that you don't want to think about. The things that make you uncomfortable are the ones that you need to prepare for the most, so that if those things do take place and occur, that you don't have to now go into your retirement account. You don't have to go into your savings. You're not, liquidating your 401k and that type of thing to cover these things. You have other things in place to take care of them. So yes, as far as bad financial decisions, I'd say not being prepared for life happening is a pretty detrimental financial decision that many of us fall into.
Yeah, and Pastor Ed, I feel like most people are prepared for death. I mean, we got the GoFundMe, we got the love offerings, we got all kinds of things set up for
the love offering got $20 in it.
I'm just saying. So what's wrong with that? Like, what? I mean, I'm laughing and joking about it, but what are your thoughts on that? Like, people preparing for the worst.
So first thing I wanted to answer Brother Lamont's question. In the early 80s, and I'm a mortgage underwriting manager.
Yep.
In the early 80s, rates were 16%. There were no ARMs in the early 80s. That's where ARMs came about, because interest rates were so high that they had to have another avenue. So when people say, oh, rates are higher than they've ever been, it's not even close. By the
in
whole
my
80s
lifetime,
were 10% higher. Now, you're a young man. You're only,
yeah,
what, 25,
exactly.
26.
I was in kindergarten then.
Yeah. But I think just what everybody else is saying, I think the big one is the change, right? So even biblically, right? You're 7 years of lean, you're 7 years of plenty. What are you doing in your 7 years of plenty? Are you going to the beach? Are you buying a new house? And unfortunately, we as a people, we feel like our wealth is measured by our cars for some reason. So the more expensive the car you have, the wealthier you are, which is ridiculous. And we got to start teaching our kids that being wealthy means you own. You don't have any wealth if there's a lien on your house. That you don't own the house. Wells Fargo does, or whoever your bank is owns all your stuff. So you have no net worth. So when people say, I got $1 million house, no, you don't. The bank does, unless that house is paid for. Same with your car. So we've got to learn what are the small things we got to give up, because what Sister Tinisha is saying is so important. We have to give up something to afford the things that we need. That's why we can't afford them, is the stuff that we want. Right? We want to eat. We want $9 coffees instead of $9 life insurance, right? And you think about that. $9 watered down, overpriced coffee instead of life insurance that will protect your family when you go away. But we look at what's now, right? McDonald's is now. It's quicker. It's quick. And I think we're a quick society. And because we're a quick society, buy here, pay here is a good one. Rent a center, rent to own, where you're paying 3 times the amount of what something's worth. You're just giving away money. People that are buying a car every 2 years, I promise you, Warren Buffett drives around old Avalons until the wheels don't move anymore. So everybody just, you think the rich people, when I look at credit reports right now, it's not the super rich that are broke, and it's not the super poor that are broke. It's actually the people in the middle that have the worst credit profile. It's the people that should be doing okay. 70,000, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. They are leveraged out the yin yang. It's not the ones making 30,000, and it's sure enough not the ones making 300,000. It's the ones making 40, 50, 60 that want to look like they're making 90, 100, and 120. But the thing is, the ones making 120 want to look like they're making 30. Because they realize, like, if I over leverage myself now, I can't do the things later. Because there's no such thing as retirement loans, right? When we get 65 and jobs won't hire us anymore, let's be real. The job market, there is ageism. So people are not working as long. People are not working to 75, 80 years. It's easier to get a 21-year-old and pay him half as much as it is to pay someone who's 50. They'll train you for the rest. The computers will do the stuff. So you just have to be careful and plan, I think, in a way for your long game, right? We're not planning for tomorrow. We have to plan for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, 5 years. And then when you retire, the older we get, we need to be looking at that stuff, not waiting, and start saving for our kids. That's the last thing. I'll shut up. But we stop giving your kids bonds and start giving them 529s. Put your money into something that you can push towards their education versus something that's going to take 28 years to get $20 back on. Put something you can invest in for their college. If that kid doesn't use it, the next one can use it. I'm a witness to it. I have a grad student right now that we're using it, and I have another one right behind. So those are the things I think we need to plan when we get the raise. Instead of going to the beach, what can we do with that money to get either pay a little extra on a simple interest rate and get a note out of there, or save a little bit extra, or invest in something like the life insurance that we need to have.
I got it. So you want us to buy our kids Bitcoin instead of bonds?
Didn't say that. That's Everett Abel's gospel.
Nah. And before I go to you, Jay, I did want to mention something that Tinisha Campbell talked about. And man, this is his own show topic on its own. And first, I'm sorry you're going through a divorce, and like, man, not being prepared for that. I would say from my own way of looking at it is I take it like, one of those conquering generals. Like you get to the place and burn the ships. Like if my marriage don't make it, I'm like it's gonna be a problem. And but everybody got different ways of looking. Like I said, I don't like to get sidetracked too much, but I thought it's such an interesting comment that man, this is his own show. Like we could really go into this a lot when you think about what happens in relationships and when they don't work out. People got kids and child support and like all these things that I honestly, even preparing for this, never crossed my mind. But this is somebody's everyday experience. So that's why I'm glad that we had these conversations, to bring out these thought processes. Jay, I didn't mean to throw all this on you, but but what are some of the bad financial decisions we see people making? I know you bring up some doozies. You got any more for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I think you have some great panelists here discussing a lot of really good information. I think it starts early, and as you get older, once again, as I mentioned before, I think everybody alluded to it. You have the essential and non-essential expenses, and then you have to make sure you manage debt wisely. I was reading an article recently that said young professional African Americans have the lowest net worth of any subclass. And the reason for that is student loan debt, right? So young professional African Americans tend to get out of school 22, 23 years old, but then you got $80,000 in debt, where someone like my nephew, who's 26, 27 years old, went into the trades and, got his Class A CDL as a truck driver, is making just as much money without the holdback of debt, right? So I think if you look at financial wellness in general, right, the key is making sure you manage debt accordingly. Lamont mentioned the interest rates going up on your credit cards, looking at all those different scenarios. But I think it starts younger than that. And we, as the African American population specifically, we have to be mindful of some of the mind tricks, right? The mind tricks, as I call them, is you don't see the payday loan place in the good side of town, right? You always see those in our communities. You don't see the places, the rent to own places. And, back when I was growing up, the thing, it was a big thing to have spinning wheels on your car, right? You want to have spinning wheels in your car, then you made it. But you don't see those rent-a-rim places in the good side of town, right? So a lot of companies are predatory, and they make money on our lack of knowledge around financial literacy. So with a lot of information out there today, whether it's YouTube or other resources online, my hope is that the financial literacy gap is getting smaller and smaller because we have more information at our disposal to really help us combat some of these bad financial decisions. But when you come to look at bad financial decisions, the culture today is different, because when I was growing up in college and getting started, I tell people all the time I was the original Uber. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, man, for $10 in gas money, I could get to the club and drop you off and come back and get you later. Because I was the only one in my crew that didn't drink, right? So I was getting $10 in gas money on Saturday, taking my friends to the club. But, that was my side job, right? So in today's environment, people have ways of monetizing their talents differently, whether it's the gig economy, whether it's food delivery, things like that we didn't have back then. So you have to maximize those opportunities to really help, drive your net worth and eliminate your debt. So it starts early. We have to educate our kids early about that. Something as simple as, where you go to school, how much does that school cost, and the debt awareness around the college education process. Going to school A and getting a degree and coming out with $60,000 in debt, or going to community college for 2 years and then going to a 4-year school and coming out with no debt. I'm starting out $60,000 ahead from a net worth standpoint by living with my parents for 2 years, going to community college, then going to a 4-year school. At the end of the day, you still got the same diploma on your wall, but you're saving the 60 to 70 grand in debt, and that debt carries you as as Ed mentioned, I mean, those debts impact your debt to income ratio when it comes to buying a home. It impacts your credit score. It impacts how much money you can save for retirement. So all that stuff is kind of intertwined together when it comes to bad decisions. But, if you can avoid the big bad decisions, I mean, what I mean by that is, the college educational experience, I think, has somewhat fooled us in the Black community to think that's the only way to success. There are many ways to success. I know Lamont is a veteran, served our country. There are different ways you can go to the military and help pay for college education as well. So we had to be more well-rounded on what does success look like. And oftentimes we make that definition so narrow that it creates a very narrow path. And I would like to see that definition be very wide to give folks as many opportunities they can to succeed, at the same time, not doing it with a boatload of debt on their balance sheet.
Hey, Everett, can
Yes,
I tie in statistics to what Jay is saying over the top?
Go ahead.
So he was mentioning home ownership and student loans, and this is how all this ties in. So home ownership in America is around 70%. White Americans make up 74% of that home ownership, and African Americans make up 42%. So more African Americans that are renting than own a home. The number one impediment to home ownership is student loan debts. African Americans are 2.5 times more likely to carry financial aid debt and carry more debt than any other ethnic group. So when you add all that up, it's a bad recipe for some bad financial times for a lot of people that look like us on this panel. I just wanted to tie that in.
No, good point. And I'm gonna kind of throw y'all a little curveball here. I hate to do this, but Janet Helpney brought up a good comment about learning to appreciate your money and what that means for you. And what that means to me is about appreciating money is that, in America, we have this stewardship, this ownership mentality, the ownership society. This is mine, this is mine, this is mine. But as a child of God, I should have a more of a stewardship mentality. Like, this is God's, and I'm a steward of it. In the same way that there's certain things I can't do with my company credit card, there's certain things I shouldn't do with what I'm a steward of. Again, throwing you a little curveball, something we didn't prepare for this, but I do want to throw this to you, Pastor Ed. What is your thought process when you think about being a steward of what God has given you, and how does that change and influence the decisions you make?
So, right, I agree with you. So when something's on loan to us, we tend to take better care of it, or we should be taking better care of it, right? So I tell my kids, every yes leads to a no somewhere else. Like, you can't have unlimited yeses, right? So every time we say yes to one thing, we have to say no to something else. That's just life. So you have to figure out what your no's are and what your yeses are, and that's your stewardship, right? Everybody wants to do everything, but we can't, right? It's amazing. It's just amazing not to we take for granted what we really have. We're blessed. We're the richest nation in the world, right? And we are all in the top 5%. Our average wages here in this country are in the top 5% in the world. So like when people say, oh, there's poverty here versus poverty in most of the world is two different things. Now it costs more to live here, but we also just need to start teaching it early. Like you said, the value. Do we value our money? Do we throw money around? Like as kids, we throw coins at each other and stuff, right? We throw money and you throwing money and folding it and doing all these things with it. We don't respect it. Like it's just a tool. So I think it's like a gun that we don't know how to operate right? It's a tool. It's not evil in itself, but when you operate it in the wrong function, this is what happens, right? And then now we're going back to God saying, Lord, why you take all my money? He said, no, I had to repossess that money from you because you weren't doing what you were supposed to with it.
And Brother Jay, just talking to you off air and behind the scenes, I can tell you are a good steward, especially in your professional capacity. I can't imagine you going and putting lottery tickets on your expense account or anything shady like that. So what does it mean to you as far as like what God has given you and being a steward of that? Like, how does that affect the decisions you make financially?
Now, first of all, I never read in the Bible where lottery tickets was not of the word. That's a joke, obviously, but but yeah, I think you have to be a good steward. I think if you really look at me being a man of faith, and you're looking at how we lead our households, right? So I got to lead my household before I can lead at work, right? And I think that's the number one thing that we have to prioritize. People use leadership in different ways and different frameworks, but I have to lead my household in accordance to the will of God, because that's the standard that I hold myself accountable to. So when you look at that and you look at how that typically leads over into the things that I do, the mentorships of young men that I do on a daily basis, there is no coincidence of the way that I try to eliminate debt in my household. I would say I'm anti-debt, but it does make me break out, right? But the reason why I tend to have very long, lengthy car, I hold my cars a very long period of time. I've been in my home for a long period of time. I mean, there are certain correlations that you can draw to as a good steward. Now, because sometimes you could diversify and do certain things. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can diversify and do certain things and take more risk wherever you think is best for your particular situation. But that doesn't take away from, I think, the core tenets of who you are and what we're called to do. I'm a giver, right? So the Lord has called me to give. So I give a lot, not only through my church, through tithes and offerings, but I give a lot of my time and a lot of my expertise and my efforts as well. So it's more than just a very, it's easy to look at things in a very myopic situation and through a very singular lens. I think when you really open it up and you look at the spectrum of who we are and the multidimensional aspect of who we are at home, at work, in the church, etc., you should see the correlations of the biblical experience, or how you're leading your life according to the word and to the will of God.
Amen. And Miss Tanisha, stewardship versus ownership. What is your opinion on that? And then how does that affect your life and your decision making?
Well, for the time that I've been in financial services, I'll say this: I've done a lot of workshops and that type of things with churches and groups and things like that. And I always come from a perspective of faith and finances, because many times one of the first things that people have to do is they have to forgive themselves for the mistakes they already made. They walk around with that baggage almost tied to them, and they can't move forward and pivot to a different way of handling their money, because they are so, entrenched in the way that, maybe mama did it or maybe daddy did it. And, these type of things, what they grew up and what they saw and what they didn't see as far as their finances. And many times they also have a little bit of trauma from that thing too, because you'll be talking to somebody and they'll give you their story and how money really affected them psychologically and what they saw go on in their home and that type of thing. So many times I always start with, put your hand over your heart and say, I forgive you. I forgive you for the decisions you made when you didn't know better. I forgive you for, the spending that you did thinking it was going to fill some emotional holes and gaps, within who you were, because you were buying these things and you were doing these things and you weren't a good steward necessarily over what it was that you had, and so people have to sometimes take a step back before they can take a step forward. And I've seen that a lot over the years. But once, you kind of let those things go, you can most definitely straighten that boat up and start, going a little bit different in terms of how you handle your money. I even remember having clients that, it was the biggest deal in the world that they actually tracked their money. Before, they never tracked their money. and to keep up with how much they had coming in and what they were really spending it on, that was an emotional thing. That was like, almost a counseling session. Like, here's the box of tissue, type of a situation. So our money is so tied to us, and to our what we've had in the past, and our emotions and our faith and our all of that can be so wrapped up and bundled up together that sometimes you do have to take a minute and and let that thing go and forgive yourself and unwind a little bit before you can straighten things up. To write down a budget is a huge deal for many people. For some people, it's nothing. I've also sat with the people where they can bring out the notebook from 8 years ago and show me exactly what they spent on their stuff that year, and they got a notebook for every single year. But everybody is different with how they're able to handle that and what it actually means to them to handle their finances. And so, yeah, I've seen that, being a good steward, you need your faith many times in order to help you to get things going the way that they're supposed to go. And then as far as ownership, and get into a place where you can own, I was looking at some numbers and everything before we got on here, and it was saying, that 56 or something percent of Americans or whatever, if you ask them, okay, you have a debt and this debt is, $1,000 or whatever, they would not be able to come up with that money. They could not do it. They don't have it in savings. They don't have it, any place to be able to even deal with that. And so again, that tracking your money, the emotions of it, I'll deal with it later type of a situation. I'll get by, on what I have, is something that we have to go back and do some work on. And for some people, that could almost be, like I said, a counseling session and a box of Kleenex, and forgive yourself a little bit. You need the Lord.
That's some good stuff, because that's something that didn't cross my mind either. You talk about the emotional standpoint of debt, and you have to forgive yourself for what you've done. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I wish you could walk into a bank and put your hand over your heart and ask for forgiveness, but they're not as sentimental, I guess. Lamont, ownership versus stewardship.
No, I will definitely say I haven't always been a good steward of money. And a lot of it is psychological. And I see Dr. Keefe is on, or like I grew up, and if my mom and dad are watching, I apologize for what I said. We ate generic food, and I was like, I'm never eating generic food. Like, I don't care what it is. I'll tell you I'm not eating generic food. I'm not shopping for it. I'm not buying it. I don't know how many times you try to convince me it just tastes the same. I'm not eating Clancy chips. I'm not eating Cocoa Ruffs or whatever the name. I'm just not doing it. King like the emotional part, King Vitamin, no sir. And I know that sounds petty. Even with clothing, like you get picked on enough for wearing off-brand stuff growing up. You're not going on that path. And then in turn, you pass that on to the next generation where your kids are not going to wear non-name brand and they're going to wear a certain thing. So yeah, definitely stewardship, 100% I can do better. And I have a great job, make great money and do great things outside even my work. But in my head sometimes, and this is that you might not have had the greatest cars growing up. Let's get the nice car. We might not have lived in a nice house as the nicest house where our counterparts across town lived in a 2-story. I always want a 2-story. Let's get a 2-story. No matter if it's just 2 people in the house, you want 4,000 square foot of a house. So yeah, definitely can do better and be a better steward of God's money and resources and talent. Like that's a given for me that that's one of those things I look in the mirror every day and say, hey, I can do better. Just reining in. And me and you talk about this company expense thing. If I don't eat McDonald's on my own, I'm not going traveling eating McDonald's. I'm not a bad company steward of their money, but there are certain things I wasn't gonna do it on my own if I'm out of town. No, I'm gonna eat nice like I would at my own house. But I know that's a different expense that you try to throw on Jay about getting scratch offs with his company credit card. But that's just my point of view.
No, but the point I'm making with that is that, you know, I get the point you're making, but you know, we won't, uh, you know, at the end of the month, you got to do an expense report, and that's gonna bring a lot of accountability. Just even if nobody even reads it, they'll just sign on it. The very fact you got to fill out a report that says that this is what I spent that on, and do I do that with the money that I'm a steward of, you know, that God is personally, you know, giving me. Yeah, I take your point though.
Excellent point. I don't stay at the Motel 8 in my personal life. I'm not staying in it in the company's life either. But good point, Everett. Sorry to disrupt you.
Got you, man. It's some good stuff. So now I want to get around to talking specifically about like what we should be doing with our money. As and again, like a lot of times in conversations like this, people ask the $1,000 question. Like, what if you got $1,000? Like, what would you do with it? And with that, I'll go to the financial advisor. Like, what should we be doing with our money?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is save some money. That's the one that jumps out to me, I guess, the most, because most people just don't have savings. Again, for whatever reason, we don't put our money up, and emergencies happen and things take place, and we don't have an emergency fund that we can access to take care of these things, instead of having to go into the things that are supposed to help us in our later years, you know, as far as our investments and those type of things. And so that is what we end up using, you know, because we need $1,000. So that's the first place I would say go. Once you have that, you know, kind of maxed and everything, where you can say, okay, I got at least 6 months. I'm going to say at least 6 months. I'd like to see a little bit more than that, but at least 6 months of your expenses and so forth put up. Then you can, you know, begin to maybe fund a retirement account a little bit more, and you know, invest your money into some things that you feel comfortable with investing in, that you understand how they work and the good and the bad of those investments. Then you can begin to invest a little bit more. But the first place I would love to see someone put $1,000 is going to be savings, where you you can access it, it's liquid, it's there, and you don't have to jump through anybody's hoops in order to get it.
And I appreciate especially your perspective. Like, you take a very conservative approach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I make a lot of jokes about Bitcoin and stuff like that. I'm not anti, you know, any, you know, type of investment. I just think it's you know, kind of risky. And but we don't all have the same risk tolerance. Like,
That's right.
There are people out here selling fentanyl and risking their lives and their freedom. So you know, I'm just saying.
Well, that's a comparison. Fentanyl and Bitcoin.
What I'm saying is that everybody don't have the same risk tolerance.
No, they don't.
Some people are willing to go a little bit further out on the limb.
Mm-hmm.
With that. So like I said, I you know, I don't want to, you know, have people thinking I'm saying they shouldn't do things, but just be smart about what you're doing, I guess. What you saying, Lamont?
No, man, fentanyl and Bitcoin. I ain't got nothing to say, man. I'll let you put those in a sentence together. I don't know.
Well, I'll let you help me out on this. What should people be doing with their money? And if somebody just gave you an extra $1,000, I mean, how does that help you? What do you do with it?
Well, paying off any debt that you might have or paying it down, it's always helpful. And I'll say this from a man's standpoint, head of household, like having debt over your head. And we talked about this many times. If there's a foreclosure sign in your front yard tomorrow, most people are not going to your wife. They're going to the man. He a bum, he a loser. Like that pressure that, you know, so when you accumulate a whole bunch of debt and you can't manage it, especially as men, and a lot of us suffer in silence, feel like we can't talk about those types of issues. So we make the problem worse instead of like taking financial advice we're going to dig ourselves into a deeper hole and self-medicate. Like, it's a spiraling thing. So I would say definitely pay off any existing debt you have to get that under control. And if these last three years haven't taught us anything, man, COVID is indiscriminate on how it has ravaged people and their abilities to work. Like, I don't care if you think you're going to work another 10, 15 years. There's people right now that got long haul symptoms that won't work again.
All right. So we had a lot of conservative approaches, save money, paying off debt. I want to make some money, Pastor Ed. Tell me how I can invest in the Airbnb for $1,000 and make $10,000 a month. Like how does that happen? Like what can I do to with that $1,000 to change my life?
So that's the thing. We all want to hit home runs, right?
Yeah.
So when you invest in, you're not trying to hit home runs. You're trying to hit singles, right? As long as you're moving forward. I think that's one of our problems, right? Everybody's just like, people will sell a house because, I've got so much equity in my house, I'm going to make $50,000 on my house. Yeah, but now your interest rate's 8% instead of 2%. So that equity's gone, because over 30 years you've lost all that equity that you thought you gained selling that house and buying the bigger house in the neighborhood you wanted, because now the interest rate's higher. So I think that we've got to start getting back to hitting singles. So like with $1,000, nobody's going to save all 1,000. But in your mind, if you can start by saving something, if you're someone who's never saved, you're not going to save it all. So if you've never saved and you get 1,000, commit to 100. Say, you know what, 100 is going to go into savings. You know what, 50 is going to go into savings. And then we got to start doing the free money. We got to start using our free money. When you got a 401k and someone's investing a portion in it, you should be investing in it. Your tax-free income's going down anyway, and you're not paying taxes off your full income anyway. So invest into those where they're matching your contribution, where they're doubling your contribution. That should be one of your first steps, in my humble opinion. And everybody has different ways to do things. But I think too many of us want to hit that penny stock and make $1 million instead of just consistently putting away, because time is our friend, right? Compound interest is all about time. Yeah. So the more you can put away when your kids are young, and I think that's the main thing I would encourage when you get $1,000. We got to stop hiding from our kids that we're broke. And I know people don't want to hear that. I never tell my kids what I went through. They didn't need to know. No, they do need to know. They need to know that the things that they had, those overpriced sneakers that they're walking around, cost you wearing clothes from the 70s. They need to know those things, if that's what the case is, right? We need to start teaching our children what wealth really means. I gave up this so you can have this. And I'm not saying we need to make our children feel bad about it, but they've gotta have some literacy before they hit school, because the school's gonna get them quick. You go to college and you got the tables all set up. Get you a credit card. You don't even have a job and they'll give you a credit card. Mm-hmm. And no interest for the first 3 months. Yeah, but it's a 20% interest rate after that. No balance transfers are free. We're not teaching that stuff. And we as pastors have to do a better job of admitting we're broke when we're broke. Because I'll tell you, in the mortgage industry, the 3 Ps, physicians, policemen, and pastors are the ones we don't like to lend to, because they have the most jacked up credit. So there has to come a point where we as leaders also have to take courses instead of teaching courses. Why pastors are teaching courses sometimes, and I'm saying this as a pastor, why a lot of pastors are teaching courses on financial literacy, I don't know. It's like me teaching how to grow hair. Like, we've got to let the experts teach what they're supposed to teach, right? And stay in our lane. And I think sometimes we try to stay in everybody's lane. I see Sister Keisha on there. We try to be counselors. We try to be everything that we don't have the education for, instead of a brother like Brother Jay and Sister Tinisha actually showing us, right? We got to get on that scale and look at the ugly numbers. They look ugly at first. When you see your budget, it's going to be embarrassing, but it doesn't change whether you look at it or not. So I think my encouragement is look at it, because what are your negotiables and non-negotiables is what's got to change. If Starbucks is your non-negotiable, Lamont, if you want Cocoa Puffs instead of whatever that brand you said was, that's a non-negotiable. That's fine. But what else are you willing to give up so that you can have the name brand Cocoa Puffs, because you're going to have to give up something else.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's the conversation that's going to change from person to person. You want the $300 Jordans? Great. What else does that mean? I work 3 jobs for him. Well, that's your prerogative, right? You just have to know what those things are that you're willing to do extra for. And I think start with 1,000, be faithful over a few things. He'll make us ruler over many. Take that little bit of money. Start by saving 100. Don't try to save 1,000. You ain't gonna do it. But just don't go on vacation with it. You're already broke, and the first thing you're gonna do is go to Myrtle Beach with it. Why not pay off a debt? If you can't save, pay off something. You know, move forward.
I mean, past that, we ain't going to Myrtle Beach these days. We going to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Cancun, the DR. We don't even call it Dominican Republic. We call it the DR. Like we natives, DR.
I'm going to Dave Lyle, right? I'm going over to Belk. I'm living it up in Rock Hill from Fort Mill. You know, that's my vacation right now because I got 2 kids in school. So frankly, I don't have vacation time.
Yeah, that's it right there, man. But one of the things you hit on, man, like people don't want that base hit. Like nobody just wants to get on base. They want to circle all the bases at one time. And you know, and that's one of the things I believe in. You know, take the base hit. You know, take the check down pass. You know, hit the layups. And you know, Jay, you got a background in basketball as well. I think that's one of the first shots you learn as a basketball player. They don't start you out at the 3-point line. They start you out at the layup line, right?
Well, that was the case until Steph Curry came along, and now everybody wants to shoot half-court shots. Yeah. So it changed the whole game. But in theory, you are right? In theory, you're right. Layups, free throws, 3-pointers, you know, get the layups first, and then you'll figure out a way to manage everything else. But it comes full circle. I think everything is, you know, since I can't buy lottery tickets and I can't buy Bitcoin, I guess my whole presentation is shot at this point. But I think it does go full circle. I mean, you know, make sure you have a plan in place. Most technology now, whether you're into phones or computers or laptops or whatever, you're wherever you bank has already built into it the technology. In most cases, if you deal with a large commercial bank and not a credit union, etc., it's a button on your app that can hit one button to show you your spending for the whole month. It'll categorize it for you already. Yeah. Right. So this is not like a new concept. Budgeting is not a new concept, right? I'll be the first one to tell you that I was an early adopter of the budgeting strategy. I can probably tell you down to the penny how much money we spent in the last 20 years. And that's just because I was a very early adopter of you know, the technologies that help track those things. Budgets and spreadsheets are kind of my strengths, so I kind of play to my strengths from that perspective. But nothing happens without a plan. A lot of people tend to overpay taxes during the year. So come April, they get what? A tax refund, right? So where's that tax refund going? Is it going into your 401k or a savings account, et cetera? Or is it going to do whatever else you want to do, right? So those are just some things that you can kind of incorporate on a very, very broad level. Tanisha mentioned something earlier, and I'm not here to promote any product or service or anything. I mean, it's not my lane. But she mentioned long-term care insurance. Specifically for me, in 2015, my father had a very significant stroke, and the outcome of that stroke was that he needed skilled care 24/7. So we had to move into a skilled care facility. And up until he passed away, over 5 years later, November of 2020, he was in a skilled care facility. My family didn't have long-term care insurance, right? So we had to get a lot of things we had to get done. But at the end of the day, most of his payment for my father's care came out of my pocket, right? So with that being said, it is a need in our community to be better educated around those things. And, no one, unfortunately, some of the circumstances in the Black community is life insurance and long-term care are kind of taboo topics. And once again, it's not for me to tell you one way or another, but I'm just sharing my personal experience that I dealt with my father for almost over 5 years. His illness and when he passed away, it's something that, statistics will tell you that 36% of people over the age of 60 are going to need long-term care at one point in time. So if 5 of us on this call today, right? I mean, statistics are 40% of us are going to need long-term care at one point. I think that covers all of us, statistically speaking, all of us, on this panel. So just be more cognizant of that. But that's just my story that happened directly to my family. And it was fortunate that I was able to take care of my father and his needs during that time because he did have prevailing health issues and things that disqualified him for some of those insurances. But it's a real thing. But as I mentioned before, with the advent of technology, YouTube, and a lot of different educational platforms, you're really creating, and I'm hopeful we're creating a situation to where we're narrowing the gap of education, right? Everybody has a computer in their pocket. So if we have a computer in our pocket, what can we do to better educate ourselves on everything we talked about here tonight and not wait on someone else to do it for us? I'm really big into podcasts. I'm really big into YouTube videos. I'm really big into self-education. Just 6 months ago, I changed something on my toilet. Now I'm a plumber. I watched a video on YouTube, and now I'm a YouTube plumber, right? So you can do a lot of things yourself nowadays instead of, I think historically the information sources were distorted, and a lot of the information sources were not getting to the Black and brown communities. But now those information sources are one click away. So I think we're removing the obstacles of financial literacy, removing the obstacles of a lack of education, because most people I know have a computer in their pocket. So how are we using that computer to better educate ourselves to make sure that we're not repeating the mistakes of the past?
And that's some good stuff, man. And I really enjoyed this conversation, man. There's a lot of great comments. You gave me a lot to think about. I hope that the audience got a lot of it as well. Before we end, I want to go around one more time to see if we can get any final thoughts. I mean, you got a lot out, but is there anything left that you wanted to say that you didn't get to say? And I'll start with Pastor Ed.
The one thing I just encourage everybody, because I've been broke, and I've been bankrupt, and I've had issues with finances, right? And I needed help. And there comes a point where if you need help, get help. It's okay. There is no stigma. The stigma to supporting your family is if you don't do it, you're not supporting your family. Get help. And I'm sure that these folks on here can give you some more people that you can join up with. But we can't keep walking around acting like everything's fine when our finances are a mess. We need to look at them. You need to get on that scale and you need to see what it looks like. And we need to just move forward. It's okay. We've all made mistakes and we move on, but you can't move on if you don't know what the issue is. So I just encourage everybody, if you don't know how to manage your finances, don't be embarrassed. Most people don't, but find some credible people that can help you with it, and don't tell everybody your money business, but find somebody that's credible, that has a history and stability that you need, that can at least break it down for you into manageable chunks. That's one thing we're going to try to do at Faith Connection, is just have courses where we look at credit reports, as we just look at these things on a small level. And in our young people, we wait too long to teach them. They need to be in these courses with us.
All right. So I'm hoping that those courses will be open for friends and family as well. I mean, I'll drop off a little donation if necessary, but
free.
I appreciate it. So Miss Springs, like, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I would say definitely, with most of these things, we the first thought is start young with, whatever we're doing when it comes to finances, whether we're teaching young people or we're doing it ourselves when we're young. If you don't start young, start now, wherever you are in life and whatever age you are in life, start right now. Today can be it. Like Jay was saying, as far as YouTube and so forth, we can now go and educate ourselves on pretty much anything that you want more information about. But can we also go on YouTube and waste a lot of time on frivolous things that don't mean anything? Yes, we can do that too. So that barrier that used to be there does not exist anymore if you really, really, really want the information. And of course, there's people like myself and Jay and Pastor Ed and you all as well that's there to help you. But yeah, if you want to make a difference, you can, and in your own personal life. The other thing I'm going to say, because we went down this road, I want to say this as well. In terms of the long-term care, and I saw that one of the commenters, I think she said that she works at a long-term care facility. Let me say this, you all, with COVID, young people are needing long-term care now. It's not a thing of it's just people who are over the age of 60 or 70 or what. We have young people who have been diagnosed with different conditions or whatever, and now they have advanced stage dementia and they're 34 years old. And different physical ailments and so forth. So please put protections in place, even with your life insurance. There's life insurances that now come with living benefits. That means that policy won't just pay out if you die. It will also pay you if you get sick. And there's a whole list of things that could be going on with you, and you receive cash money to take care of yourself. So there's so much that you can do and so many avenues that you can go down to prepare yourself for, again, the simple thing of life happening. That's all it is. We're just preparing for life. We're preparing to live each day, to eventually pass on or get sick and then eventually pass on. But if we don't put these things in place and we don't go and take the proper steps that we need to take, many times what we're doing is we're setting our families up for a very difficult situation. And Jay was fortunate that he was able to do the things that he was able to do for his father, but many people cannot. And when that time comes that mom or dad needs extra help or whatever, I mean, it liquidates their whole lifetime of working and what they've been able to save and put up. All that money is gone. There is no inheritance for the children's children to receive, because all of that had to be spent taking care of mom and daddy before they passed away. And then there's something called Medicaid estate recovery, where they can then come and take the house. That's another conversation, but we got to do better on just preparing ourselves for life and for illness and things like that, and be good stewards, as you mentioned earlier.
Hey, Tinisha, can you put your professional contact information into the show thread link, either when we finish or right now? Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and that's a lot of good stuff. I mean, we could have a whole show again also on preparing for taking care of elderly parents and things like that, because there's a lot of stuff I don't know, like how do you maintain control of assets and things like that. It's just some things that people have been knowing for since the laws were written. They wrote the laws, and we just coming around to it. So it's good you kind of hipped us to that. Brother Jay Shaw, thank you for being on here. Great to have you once again. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we alluded to it earlier. Make layups, man. Don't try to come out here and shoot 40-footers. A single is good. Get on base. So oftentimes, any action is better than inaction, right? So start where you are. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be intimidated. I'm sure there's someone in everybody's circle that can help them find information and things like that. But my final thought is leave this conversation today with the intent of making a change. Small steps towards progress. If you can do that every single day, if you can get 1% better every single day over 365 days, then you're 365% better than you were when you started. And oftentimes we want the home runs, we want the Bitcoins, we want the lottery tickets, we want the instant success. But it all starts with little nuggets. I too was relatively homeless early in my life. I slept on my aunt's couch for 6 months. I didn't have a home to myself, so I don't know if that qualifies or not, but I slept on the floor some nights and the couch the other nights. You got to make sure you know where you are. Start now, no matter what they tell you. Success begins today. And if you can embrace that mentality, you'll be fine moving forward.
Great point. I point out that you talk about learning the basics. John Wooden, he started out the first day of practice the same way. He taught you how to put your socks on, and then he taught you how to put your shoes on and how to tie your shoes. And folks out here working on all types of crossovers and 360 dunks and don't even know how to put their shoes on. And so that point you make about learning the basics and starting with the basics, I think is a great point for every area of life. Lamont, what are your final thoughts?
I think, first of all, I'm honored to talk in front of this group. I feel least qualified. This is a smart panel, and that's what we strive to do with High Definition: connect people with smart resources. Even when we discuss this topic, it's a real topic right now, this second. And so we wanted to talk about it. And that's a lot of our topics, if you're looking at it's real things that we deal with. But the financial pressures within minority communities at this time is tremendous. And the sickness and illnesses that people are seeing from COVID and the effects of it long term, it's going to be worse in minority communities because the lack of health care, the lack of resources. So this is going to be some tough times, and hopefully you can take information and even if it's a nugget and make your life better, make somebody else's life better. I'm still on when we're talking about financial, our health, like our real physical health, mental health. I know Dr. Keith is watching. Our mental health, like if you're not mentally there, it don't matter how much you focusing on money, it ain't gonna go right. So that's my final thought is we need to help each other, support each other. Pastor Ed brings up a good point about the church. Do things that you're good at and pass along the things you're not to real professionals. Get the Tinisha Springs in your church. Get the other professionals in your circle. And then we got to get out of these videos where everyone is living these $1 million mansions and we think that's our path too. And we've done nothing to prepare for it. And I think that's all I have, Evan.
And the thing I'll say is that once again, great conversation. I mean, Pastor Ed, I sometimes I take you for granted. I don't give you enough credit for coming on here. And I mean, don't come. I mean, I understand being humble and all, but you have a lot of great insight, especially in topics like this. And so I really appreciate what you're doing, Miss Springs. Again, you're always sharp. and just always giving great information and really if somebody ain't got their life together financially, you gave them a lot of tools to handle that. And Jay, we didn't get fired today, I hope. That's the main goal, not to get fired. So because I can't pay none of your bills. Like I said, we'll pass your hat around for you. But once again, man, great having you on. And Lamont, I mean, you already know. But so I guess my final thoughts on this is that, and I don't want to be the guy waving the flag for America, but I do feel like I should do it at this point. Something that Pastor Ed talked about, like we have a lot of opportunities here and to take advantage of. Like I've grown up with Lamont, and I just seen him take advantage of all these opportunities, to get to where he is in life. And I'm sure he could point out to all the opportunities he left on the table. And man, we live in a country where homeless people can eat 3 meals a day. Like we're blessed. And again, there are a lot of obstacles to overcome. I don't want to minimize those, but at the same time, we got to acknowledge that we have a lot of blessings and opportunities. And then the last thing I'll say is that, we've been using all these sports analogies. I say we should be coachable, be willing to learn more. I'm a person who always felt like I was somewhat financially literate. I consider myself to be, good with money. And then I got married. And then me and my wife started having financial meetings, and I realized she knows some stuff that I don't know about, and she's talking about things that I haven't even heard of, and it is very intimidating at first, and but you have to learn how to be able to take advice and also take criticism. And then that's the only way we're gonna be able to grow. But at the same time, we gotta learn how to give criticism too, constructively. Not picking on folks or trying to show how good we are and how bad you are. And so that's why I thank God for these types of conversation, these types of panels, this diverse group with all different types of experiences. And yeah, I won't be posting that comment. But we thank God for all you on this panel and for almost all of your comments. Yeah, God bless you, and we'll see you again next week.
Have a blessed week.